QQI, Ahead and Dawn are exploring the topic of inclusive assessment and standards, and we want to better understand student perspectives on the topic. So, we put a call out to FET and higher education students to submit selfie video responses to two key questions, and the students had a lot to say. This video brings together a representative summary of their responses. Firstly, we asked them about negative experiences of assessment, which made it less inclusive and presented barriers for them to demonstrating their learning. Here's what they had to say.
I'm already registered with DSS, but I found exams incredibly difficult because even though you have accommodations for exams, they do not address sensory needs. I could not manage with the noise and the light and the sound, on top of the anxiety with exams. So for people like myself who have who are neurodivergent and have sensory issues, the typical exam formation, even with disability accommodation, really is not conducive to allowing us to perform at our best.
The only negative side probably would be PowerPoints and presenting them. That's probably because I'm of the older generation and was something totally new to me. But I found by doing group work before the PowerPoint and by working in smaller groups, to start with, I was able to present in smaller groups. So when this type of assessment came around, I slowly gained in confidence, and now I have no problem sitting in front or standing in front of a larger group.
I like courses where there's lots of assignments and the priority is not on the sitting exam. As a young learner leaving cert, junior cert, I found it built a lot of anxiety up and found it too upsetting. So when I had the choice later on as an adult, I went to QQI level 8 mostly without much written exam content in any of those courses.
In my end of term exam for one of my modules, the questions asked were not something that was covered in class, and this made it challenging for me and my classmates to demonstrate our understanding and knowledge acquired throughout the modules.
Sometimes for our continuous assessments, so throughout the year, we are pushed into an exam hall with everyone else in our class, and our extra time is allocated at the end, and while our classmates can leave. And it kind of lets people know that we have some sort of disability, which is not kind of that nice. I prefer to keep it private.
That's just a sample of some of the barriers to demonstrating learning the students shared, but we also asked them about positive experiences of assessment that made it more inclusive for them to demonstrating their learning, and what would make for a more inclusive assessment experience for them in the future.
My best experience with inclusive assessment were lecturers that were very willing to give extensions. Even if extensions had been asked for before, I would not have gotten through college at all if my lecturers had been unwilling to give extensions. Even for a few days, like that makes such a difference because there's so many other things going on in my life.
Give your student a choice. Choice gives an opportunity to play with your strange sides. If you like report, so write it. If you prefer PowerPoint presentations, then do it. If I prefer book creator, then let me create it. There are so many ways to express your thoughts, especially if you talk about digitalization.
A more inclusive assessment experience for me would be to have the sources relevant to each question on every essay question there is in university level.
I think a more inclusive thing that they could do would be to have maybe a room in exams that's supervised, that you could take a minute in during an exam if you take to panic. So like sometimes I panic in exams and I need a minute. I understand obviously people could go and look up the answers or whatever, but if this room was supervised, that would help a lot.
UDL has ensured that my assessment has been very inclusive from the start. I can't think of anything that would make me feel more inclusive. I think UDL accommodates every type of learner in every situation. I've had a very positive experience with assessment, although at the start, as I say, it was daunting, but I have every help that I need.
Sometimes we've been allowed to pick our own medium that we use for presenting our assignment. So we might have been told that we could use a Word, do a Word report, a book creator, or a PowerPoint presentation. So I found that really good, that you could use whatever medium suited your strengths better. You had some flexibility there, while we all still had to represent the same learning.
Continuous assessment is a way more easier on people with disabilities than sitting exams, formal exams, as formal exams for people with disabilities can be really pressure and can make people really nervous.
Inclusive assessment to me looks like continuous assessment, in which in tutorials you get questions and answers with your tutors, and you're assessed on how your ability to answer those questions in class through verbal communication. Inclusive assessment to me looks like no in-person exams and massive study halls based on short-term memory and rote learning. Inclusive assessment to me looks like forming your own opinions on things and having long periods of time to execute an answer.
What would make it more inclusive for me, I think it would be if you could replicate the experience I had in France, where it was an ongoing assessment over a period of days based upon my interaction with service users, but also colleagues. And the entire process itself was a learning experience. And I think for people like myself who are neurodivergent, it is very difficult to accommodate us, and I appreciate that, in all our needs. But being able to see me over a long period of time really can show my own strengths.
Thank you to all of the brilliant students who contributed to this work.